Our next resolution marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And again, we will not read the entirety of the resolution, but we do have a number of guests that I want to recognize. In the box is Noah Cruikshank from the Illinois Holocaust Museum, Dr. Danny Cohen, co-chair of the Illinois Holocaust and Genocide Commission, Lonnie Nassatir, president of the Jewish United Fund, Rabbi Shlomo Soroka, Rabbi Shoshana Conover, and Israel Starck, a Holocaust survivor who will address the body. Mr. Starck?
Good morning. My heartfelt thanks and appreciation to the Honorable Mayor Lightfoot of Chicago, my Alderman Deborah Silverstein, and this great Council of Representatives of the City of Chicago for allowing me to say a few words on this Holocaust remembrance. My name is Israel Starck. I was born in Czechoslovakia in the year of 1929. I come from a family of 3 sisters, and I was the youngest and the only son in my family. I have been a Chicago resident since 1948. I'm also a Holocaust survivor of 4 concentration camps: Auschwitz, Mauthausen, Melk, and Ebensee. Unfortunately, survivors in this tragic period are diminishing rapidly. I give thanks daily to the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty God, that He has granted me the health and memory to recall that tragic period and speak now to my fellow Chicagoans, residents of this city that is so dear to me. I well remember my family being forcibly and brutally rounded up in my small town of Pothoryan, being held in subhuman conditions in a brick factory for 3 weeks, and then crammed into dark, suffocating cattle cars, where conditions were so inhuman that many died en route to the camps. As the freight train came to a screeching halt in Auschwitz, Birkenau, amidst the reverberating command of Aussteigen, Aussteigen, schnell, schnell, out, out, quickly, quickly, my loving mother motioned to me and held me back long enough to put additional clothing of me from her bundle. And I asked Mother, why are you doing this? And she says, because I have to leave everything here on this platform near the train, and maybe just what you will have on your person you'll be able to keep. A halfling, a prisoner who was in charge of processing the new arrivals, he approached us for the second time, agitatedly insisting to exit the car, the freight car, at once. Suddenly, he looks at me and he says in Yiddish, Yingale, wie alt bist du? Young man, how old are you? And I reply, I am 14. 14. And he says, no, you are not 14 anymore. You are now 18 years. You are now, remember, you are 18 years old. As the time for selection approached, and they asked me, the German officer asked me, how old are you? Wie alt bist du? And I replied in a loud voice, stretching myself out, I said, 18. And he motioned I should go to my left, following my father. My father got separated from me weeks later. During a forced march, he too did not survive. The designs of the Nazis were both to dehumanize and to exterminate groups to whom they felt superior, primarily Jews, but also gypsies, homosexuals, the disabled, and political prisoners. The primary sin of these individuals mercilessly and viciously murdered was simply that they were seen as others. In today's climate of rising virulent anti-Semitism and national divisiveness, behooves us to remember that even the most ostensibly civil society can fall to the lowest point if we throw our own humanity and that of our fellow citizens to the wind. I am a living witness to the atrocities so-called civilized man is capable of. On this day of remembrance, we honor the memory of those who were imprisoned, tortured, and murdered. My own father and mother, and scores of my aunts, uncles, and cousins among them. We honor them not primarily by the words we speak and the principles we espouse, but rather by the truth and virtues we demonstrated by the caring actions we take. On this Holocaust Remembrance Day, I ask you, my fellow brothers and sisters in Chicago and beyond, will you care enough to ensure that of the Holocaust I can truly be said, never, never again? Thank you very much.
I stand with the entire body of council to also speak to this resolution, and I want to thank the members who spoke today. We heard many poignant, beautiful, and heartfelt testimonials and calls to action. Tomorrow, January 7th, marks the day Auschwitz was liberated, and the world saw for the first time the horrors of the Holocaust laid bare. From that day forward, we made two profoundly sincere promises: never again and never forget. Phrases that urge us to acknowledge and remember all who perished during the Holocaust. Today, we honor the millions of Jewish and other victims who suffered at the hands of the brutal, and ruthless Nazi regime and its enablers, who committed atrocities in the name of hatred and anti-Semitism. Since the liberation of Auschwitz, survivors and supporters have worked to ensure that we truly never forget and continue to fight to make sure that this kind of atrocity never happens again. I want to thank and acknowledge our Jewish friends who are here with us today and also virtually, as well as Mr. Starck, who we are beyond grateful for taking the time to share his thoughts and remembrances and experiences as a survivor. And I commend to all of you his book entitled A Boy Named 68818. We are fortunate to have these leaders working both in the city and the surrounding area to ensure that we all continue to bear witness to what unabated hate leads to. In the meantime, I urge all of us to remember January 7th as this important anniversary of one of the darkest times in humanity. But I also want to recognize that anti-Semitism is unfortunately still alive in our community. I also want you to reflect that when members of the Jewish community go into temple to humble themselves to receive a blessing from God, they, unlike most of us, have to worry if the person walking down the aisle or the person sitting next to them is a friend or foe. That is the reality of our Jewish community every single day. I also agree with Alderman Smith that we must raise our voices when anyone tries to invoke the Holocaust or symbols of anti-Semitism in any way that trivializes this horrific period in humanity. If we stand silent in the face of such ignorance or hatred, make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, we are too complicit. So we must use our voices to take action and do everything we can to stamp out anti-Semitism and the hatred underneath it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as a woman of color, as a lesbian, if they're coming for our Jewish brothers and sisters, they're coming for me. To our Jewish brothers and sisters and our allies, we stand united with you now and forever. We must recognize this as an opportunity to acknowledge our own responsibility in taking a stand against all forms of hate in our city. Thank you.